Financial argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, many people write into me, and I wish I could respond to every single person that wrote into me, but it's physically impossible. Actually, I would never be able to get to the reports. And I was reading over some of these emails, and I don't want to mention people's names, but many people are confused in what's happening in the economy. And they're looking around and they're saying to themselves, okay, if the economy is collapsing, like Dave is saying, why do I see people out shopping? Why do I see people at sporting events? Why do I see people doing everyday things? Well, let's think about this for a second. I know many people that as they were losing their job, as they were still looking for another job back in 2008, they kept the illusion alive that everything was fine. They used credit cards. They kept doing their everyday things, all the different clubs they belonged to, they kept. All the activities their children were in, they kept. They made it seem like everything was okay, and they just kept on doing it. And many people today, and I know it's hard to say, they don't like to give up what they have. For many, it's very, very difficult. And I understand this. And many people that I know continue with the illusion. Everyone has credit cards. Think about it. In today's economy, if we took away all credit cards and nobody has any credit, how many people do you think would have the ability to survive every day with food, with purchasing fuel for your car, making payments? Now, there's going to be a population out there that, yes, they have the ability to pay for all of this because they make enough money. And yes, there are still people out there that are making money. And then you're going to have the general population, which is probably a very large percentage, where they wouldn't be able to survive. And I see it every single day, where people are putting things on credit cards and continually running the debt higher and higher. Our society has been built on debt. Do a little experiment with yourself. Try living without credit. Now, there are many people out there saying, well, I don't have any credit cards, and it's very difficult to live right now. There are others saying, I wouldn't be able to survive whatsoever. If I removed them, that's it for me. And what's happening in our economy is we're stuck in this illusion. Because when you pay for something on credit, you really don't have the money. If you have a balance on your credit card, you never had the money to do what you're doing. And a lot of people out there are doing this. Now, I'm not putting anyone down for this. I'm not saying it's wrong. But this is how many of the people out there survive today. And the illusion that people are doing okay, that people can go to these events, people can go on vacations, many people just whip out the credit card and they make the small little tiny payments. Because you can take it, you can charge something for $1,000, $2,000 and make that whatever it is, $60, $70, $40 a month payment. But eventually what happens is it catches up with you. Especially if you lose your job and you're looking for a job, things become very, very difficult. And those people that have gone through it realize it. Those people that lost their jobs never got the same high-paying job that they had before. They had to accept a part-time job, but still had their bills, still had the credit card bills, still had the electric bill, still had the car payment bill. It is very difficult to get by. And this is why we're seeing everyone out there today, and it looks like nothing is going on. But when you start to talk to those people, you start to realize that there are many, many problems. I know someone that lives in the area where I am, and he's been out of work for a year. He got a job. 2 months later, he was laid off once again. But they keep the illusion alive and they keep doing the things they're doing. They haven't stopped. So whatever they had saved in the bank, whatever credit cards they have, they're continually using it. But what we're seeing in the economy is that all the economic indicators, they are signaling the economy is collapsing. Now, back in 2008, if we tracked this all the way up to the point when it collapsed, we would have seen it. We would have seen all of it building until the collapse occurred, because it just doesn't happen on that day when the market comes down. People might think it does, but it doesn't. But it builds over time. And the U.S. government and central bank, they've been keeping the illusion alive. And many people buy into the illusion that everything is okay. But those people that are laid off, who believe that the unemployment rate is at 4.7%, are scratching their heads, why can't I find another job? Those people that are employed and are continually receiving a paycheck, they believe that everything is fine until everything is not. Now, we realize that there's a lot of people out there who are nervous about the economy. And we are starting to see that gold and silver sales, they are increasing. We see the Canadian silver maple leaf, it has surged in the first quarter of 2016, and they've just made a new record. The mint sold a stunning 10.6 million ounces, a 27% increase over the sales from the first quarter of 2015. Now, we're also seeing that they sold 1 million ounces more than their all-time record seen in the third quarter of 2015. So sales of gold and silver, they are up nearly 20% this year over last. And we understand why. People are looking at the economy, and slowly but surely they're purchasing gold and silver to protect their wealth. And when we look at these economic indicators, we see that things are rapidly falling apart. Ralph Lauren, well, they're expecting a double-digit decline. The company is going to be laying off 1,000 workers, or about 8% of its full-time staff. They're going to be closing stores. And we're starting to see a lot of this from the retailers, where they're saying sales aren't where they're supposed to be. And this is another indicator of how the economies are falling apart, because when economies fall apart, things contract. We see the American worker productivity. Well, it has fallen in the first quarter, down by 0.6%. This is the weakest two-quarter tumble in productivity since the fourth quarter of 2012. This is the third quarterly drop in output in a row. And what we're seeing is America, well, it's in trouble because productivity is dead in the water. And it doesn't look good. Factory orders, they're continually slowly contracting. And in April of 2016, orders fell by 2.7% from April of 2015. And the cumulative total for the first 4 months of this year was 2.3% less than the same months the year before. Now, factory orders, they have been in contraction for 18 months. This is incredible. And that is 4 months longer than during the Great Recession, and also 2 months longer than the dot-com recession. So the president, the Fed, they're trying to tell us that everything is okay. But from the evidence, from the facts, everything is not. The Baltic Dry Index, it has fallen by 1 point. It's down to 606. And something very interesting about the stock market, we continually see the stocks moving up. Of course, the corporate media is all over it. They're telling us how great the economy is doing. Look how great the stock market's going to be. It's going to continually go up and up and up. It's never going to come down. And actually, if you go back to 2008, right before the stock market collapsed, they said the same exact thing. Actually, they said it about housing. And guess what happened? It all fell apart. So what we're seeing at this point in time, that they're getting desperate. Throughout last week, anytime stocks have begun to correct or drop, someone has bought the S&P 500 futures to prop the market up. 3 days in a row, stocks opened down, and someone immediately stepped in and began buying aggressively. Well, this is a sign of manipulation, because the buying halts almost the moment the stocks get to 2100 on the S&P 500. At this point, the manipulation ends, and because there are a few real investors in the market today, all of a sudden the market starts to retreat. And we've been noticing this pattern. Very interesting. Because what the U.S. government, what the central banks are doing, is they're trying to keep this illusion alive as long as they possibly can. And we know that the economy is deteriorating. We know that things are rapidly falling apart. And Obama, he decided to take this to the next level, because we have to remember, the U.S. government central bankers, they really want to blame this on some other country, some other group. And they want to provoke other countries and other groups into starting something. So we can see right now the Obama administration decided to put a total ban on Chinese steel. Gave the green light to U.S. Steel to seek China import ban. And we're going to have to see what this is, because we're looking at trade wars right now. We'd had currency wars. We're into trade wars now. And once we're done with trade wars, what happens? We move into real war. Now, the IMF, they have confirmed a nightmare scenario, and an Austrian central banker said that the ECB asset-backed security purchasing program hasn't been successful as they'd hoped. So the ECB admitted that all of this that they've been doing does not work. He said there's simply not enough bonds to buy. And the program's many inherent absurdities are the glaring disparity between the size of the program and the amount of net euro fixed income issuance, and the more nuanced fact that the effects of previous ECB easing efforts virtually ensure that QE cannot succeed. And we know that QE does not help the everyday person. We know that QE doesn't really prop the economy up. QE props the bankers up, props corporations up, props the central bankers up, props the elite up, and leaves the rest of us scratching our heads saying, what just happened here? Now, something big always happens right before an official recession. And we talked about this before, and it's continuing. And when temp jobs start to decline, this is a signal. And we talked about this a couple reports back. And the temp job scenario, well, it's continually declining. And it's accelerating. So when we look at the temp jobs, what do we see? Well, in the last two recessions, we saw the same exact pattern. When economic conditions start to change, temporary workers are often affected before anyone else. Why is that? Well, temporary workers are easier to hire than other types of work, and they're also easier to fire. In May, the U.S. economy lost another 21,000 temporary jobs. And overall, we've lost 64,000 temp jobs since December. This is another indicator that the economy is collapsing. And this is why everyone needs to be prepared. All we are seeing right now, indicator after indicator after indicator, it is showing us that this whole economy is getting ready to implode. And you need to make sure you have food. You need to make sure you have water. You need to make sure that you have a weapon to protect your family. You need to make sure that you have batteries. You need to make sure that you have toiletries. Have these things on hand because you don't want to be out there when things rapidly fall apart. You can go to Costco. You can get whatever you need there. You can go to lifereliance.com. They have bug out bags. They have emergency food. They deliver right to your door. You can go to the supermarket. You can get your products from there. Does it matter where you get them from? No, as long as you stock up, as long as you are prepared, because you're going to be those people saying, wow, I knew this was coming. I have everything I need. Just like if there was a hurricane coming or a snowstorm coming or anything like that, you are prepared for what is about to happen. Now, sometimes we see people not prepared and they scratch their heads saying, oh, I thought the storm was going to pass, but it didn't. And then we have those people that are prepared saying, I knew this was coming. I have everything I need. And this collapse that is headed our way, from everything that we looked at, from GDP all the way down to unemployment and everything in between, it's deteriorating faster and faster. This is why the government and the central bank continually come out there and tell you how everything is doing well. And you're going to see them make more appearances to tell you that everything is okay, because they need to tell you it's contained, that everything is okay, and everything's going to be all right as we get closer and closer to the collapse. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.